Hello and welcome to Kamilla Singh show, and thank you so much. And we haven't done this in a studio interview for a bit, but we are back again. And my guest today is Linda Annis, and she is the executive director of Crime Stoppers of British Columbia, as well as she is a city councillor with City of Surrey, and she is a huge advocate. And you must have noticed her in all the news recently in all over. So today we're going to be talking about some of the issues that are taking place right here in Surrey. We'll start with Surrey. So welcome. Thank you so much for taking your time. And I know you go everywhere as a counselor and you are so busy in the community.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And while I haven't been on this show, I have been on your show before.
Yes.
Really enjoy reaching out to your audience.
Yes. So let's start in Surrey. And the show that we have done, and you have, like you said, you have been on the other shows. This is kind of a political show we do. We talk about issues and this is very well received by the people that watch the show because we are talking. There are a lot of people. They think about it, but they don't come out and talk about it. But this show is to bring the people and talk about the issues. So in Surrey, let's start with the policing. Policing has been on everybody's mind for a while. And I think right now, the AG, the Attorney General, is saying that the City of Council or all the councillors haven't signed the disclosure form, so they are not able to move forward. Because we need to have either SPS or RCMP, whichever way we're going to go, but something need to happen. And it hasn't happened yet. So as a councillor who sits on the council meeting, are you also very frustrated with no decision?
I'm very frustrated with no decision, as is Minister Farnworth. And I think most importantly, the residents of Surrey, they deserve better. We were offered this opportunity to sign a non-disclosure agreement a couple of weeks ago. I signed it the day of, and I know 2 or 3 of my other councillors did, and I believe most now have signed it. And the non-disclosure agreement gave us the opportunity to read a report that the provincial government has written that is not as redacted as the version that was put out to the public. I think it's absolutely critical that every member of council reads this report because it is going to be the biggest decision that we will ever make as a council. And we need to make it on facts, not on emotion.
So what is stopping it? Are you talking to each other? Never mind the mayor. Are you talking to councillors among yourself to say, what's happening with this? Are you talking?
We absolutely are, and quite frankly, it makes no sense to me. Why wouldn't you want to make a decision with more information than less? And when you're making a decision around policing, it shouldn't be made on emotion. It should be made on facts. The more facts you can get, the better informed you are.
So with that, our another panelist is joining. She's coming all the way from Benavie. Thank you so much.
So sorry to be late.
Yeah. So we just started, and we were talking about SPS and RCMP. And I said, as a councillor, then are you also very frustrated about not making any decisions? So what is your take on that? Because...
Well, I'm not a counselor.
I know you are not a counselor.
And I appreciate all the work that you've done now for for 2 terms. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess the provincial government doesn't have the right to make that final decision, right? That we know, legally speaking. But I do feel like we're caught in limbo still,
Yeah.
right? We have the letter that was done by the chief. We now have the letter from the government as well, offering the 150 million. And it just feels like at the end of the day, we haven't really made any progress further.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I think people are left and especially for those that are on those forces, are left without knowing what's to come and how's to come. And again, I know I've said this before, but as a resident, I want to see issues dealt with. That the uniform itself is not the end solution to the issues that matter, whether that's safety on our streets, whether that's our transit system, and the good things as well, right? Like how we take care of our communities, our families, mental health, education, how we take care of our youth. Like these are questions that need to be answered at a much deeper level. And the more back and forth we have, and I think it is time sensitive. If you're saying it's not, that I think is problematic, because it truly is, because we want to solve this and then move on to the actual issues.
And just to your point, it's really critical from a financial perspective too. For each month that we delay making a decision, it's $8 million worth of taxpayers' money that is just not being spent in a good way. And thinking we could be spending that on programs for youth, fixing our roads, doing something to, have more programming of some sort. But it's just kind of.
And we know these things
$8
take
million
time.
is a lot of money when we need money for the hospitals and the school systems in here and the roads and everything else. Every month you putting $8 million, and where does it go? For someone SPS, that they are sitting and they are not being able to go and work with the RCMP. We are paying for two forces in here, the RCMP and SPS.
And meanwhile, as an educator, we're underfunded.
Oh yeah, we will.
And I know that's not a mayor's decision or a council decision, but at the same time, it's really difficult to kind of see this game being played, and meanwhile, like, other services are falling apart, right? Like our hospitals and our healthcare, and that kind of $150 million injection. That's something that you think about, right? Like, so if there's the willingness to give money in that direction, how about in others as well? And the solutions we seek are not going to be solved with a one-time injection of money. These are programs you have to build over time, right? Community safety, community health is not something that happens within a week or a month or even a year. You need to put the resources, the staffing, the people on the ground to do that on a regular basis. And again, I say it always, like, even just recently sitting with some officers, that policing itself is not the solution to some of those larger problems.
Well, going back to your point about the money and about the schools not really being a city decision, I would agree, but the more money that we're taking from the province wasting is that much less money that can go into other things like schooling. And the pot is only so big, and we don't want any more taxes, thank you. So
and the taxes has gone out and has gone up in Surrey.
Yes.
And this is not including even the police, because there are other things need to be done. So the taxes has gone up in there. So we will leave it that, and I hope that very soon as a councillor, with mayor and everybody in board, either way, whether it's RCMP, just make the decision, go along with that. Because there is a lot of other things in Surrey to be taken care of than just dealing with the policing. We need more mental health workers on the streets. We need a lot of other things. Policing is not the only thing. So changing the gear from the policing, we're going to move on to education. Yes, you are the expert there. So with the education, with the schools, there are about 1,000 plus people moving into Surrey each and every month. Surrey was at one point in time the most livable city. Rent was cheap, people were moving in, people were families and all that. But it's no longer, the rents are going up. And talk about the school system. The kids going to be staying in school for 12 years of their life. And some kids that parents I have spoken to, their kids have started in portable from grade 1 to when they graduate. So why is it that either the mayor, council, the provincial government, people in here do not advocate because portables are not healthy. In summertime it gets too hot, wintertime it gets too cold. I know teachers that don't want to come and teach in portables.
And inclusion is massive. When you talk about students that have special needs, or even staff for that matter, right? We're walking to a portable. Now you're talking about double-decker portables making an appearance soon, if not already. These are and yes, for many years, the Surrey Teachers Association has raised the issue about the temperatures in our classroom, where we measure it ourselves and we send these reports in, right, hoping that somebody at the district will realize that reality. I can tell you, I have seen youth at our school at Ellie Matheson that have had to move with their families outside of Surrey because Surrey is no longer affordable, right? Or the education system isn't quite what they need, and it's not giving them the proper resources. So this is a massive issue of livability. I do think we need a bit of a roundtable, as it were, to really consider our land use, right? We need more schools. That needs to be a priority. You cannot build things without the proper base for hospitals, schooling, all the other services that make a city livable, right? So if you're going to say property taxes, taxes and you want to live here, it's a beautiful city, kids sitting in portables for the entire of their education career really isn't the way to do that. And it actually is more expensive.
Yeah.
We are spending so much money on portables that we could be building schools
And
with.
this is
other
Band-Aid
sorts.
situations.
Well, and
Absolutely.
I would also add, in places along Fraser Highway where we're going to be putting a lot of density in, there is no land there for schools right now. And the projections are, if I understand correctly, is that we'll need 8 schools when we're built out there. Where are we going to put them? And I think the ministry needs to get creative in terms of finding, are we going to now start building schools like they do in some of the larger cities where they're urbanized schools where they use parks for their recreation and there may be in the podium of one of the condominium towers. I don't know, but we need to be thinking out of the box because we're never going to fix the problem if we don't start thinking differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that creativity has to start now, and like we're already behind. It used to be 5, right? Now it's 8. Like it's just the number keeps growing almost every single year, and it is something teachers care about. I know the district can say things like, "Well, we have to think about the district." Well, so do teachers. I'm in North Surrey. I care just as much as South Surrey or anywhere else for that matter. And the situations we see teachers finding themselves in, the mental health realities, a lot of other realities that we need to start seeing more of that creativity, that innovation from the government as well, right? And yes, funding there is crucial because without funding, it just leaves it on us, and we're trying to close all these holes. And meanwhile, it's our kids not getting the education that they truly deserve.
And I think it's pretty sad when we build a school. It feels like almost opening day, we're bringing in portables.
Yes.
So clearly we're not getting the forecasting right. And part of it, I'm sure, relates to, a lot of extra secondary suites or suites that weren't permitted and, other issues, of course, too. But we need to get that forecasting better.
Absolutely. 100%.
And there is about 600,000 people in Surrey. It's very close to catching up with the population of Vancouver. And look at the resources that go to Vancouver. And another big question I'm asking you, that all the MLAs, or most of the MLAs, they are ministers here, and they are NDP. So why is nobody talking to them, advocating that this is what the real fact of living in Surrey is? They are so silent. And all are ministers now, believe me.
Surrey always seems to have gotten shortchanged, and part of it relates to our massive population growth that we haven't been able to keep up. But having said that, it's incumbent on City Council to be on the ministers and the MLA's doorsteps asking for better services. We also are the place where many provincial elections are decided, and we need to be going and leveraging and really being very clear and articulate about what services we need. We know we need more schools. We know we need more hospitals. Some of our provincial roadways need a lot of attention. But it's up to council and up to city government to be advocating, and we need to be parked on those MLA's doorsteps.
We should be sitting on the...
I mean, certainly as educators, we are on those doorsteps. We talk frequently, right? I promise you that, whether that's on our own as residents or even as a union or any other mechanism, we're talking constantly. We need action. We need more. We need that long-term thinking where, yes, it might sound like a lot of money. It might sound like a lot of, investment. But if you're not investing in your kids, you're not investing in anything. You're not investing in your economy. You're not investing in any segment of your community. And of course, we need allies alongside us to be able to share that message. And that we can do it within a public system. We really can. But we really need people to see the value of education, of teachers, of school sites. I always encourage parents to come to their buildings to see all the amazingness that happens within the building and to see just why that's important. And so why, God forbid, right? If you're talking about property taxes, how are we using our property taxes? Are we using them for the right, things? Right? Is it being spent effectively? There are ways that we can use our money to empower our own lives, right? Which includes our children and the education.
Doing some of these projects at the beginning is a whole lot less expensive.
Absolutely.
And if you get proactive as opposed to reactive, we can get stuff built cheap. But we should be looking when we're planning communities and doing our forecasting, then acquiring a school site, not waiting till families move in and then getting the site, because obviously then the land has become much more expensive and it costs everyone lot more money.
So changing the subject, I'm looking at the clock too. Let's talk about Surrey Memorial Hospital, the crisis at Surrey Memorial Hospital, only hospital for about 600,000 people. And the doctors are speaking up and they are coming out and just say, we can't work anymore. We are breaking down. The system is breaking down. They are putting the women, the pregnant, the women who are about to deliver babies in the ambulance and sending them to Chilliwack Hospital. This is not acceptable.
Well, and I would say, it absolutely is not acceptable. We need to be looking at where can we get more beds for maternity to start with, but we also need to be looking at how can we get more doctors and healthcare professionals employed in Surrey. My fear is if we open up the new hospital in Cloverdale, we're already short of doctors in Surrey Memorial. It's partly a bed issue there, but it's also a labor force issue too. So if we're going to open up a new hospital, what are we going to do to attract more medical professionals? I think that's absolutely critical. And what is the health region doing about developing an overall health plan for the Fraser Health region? I understand it's very antiquated. When will it be updated? And what's it going to look like? Because we need to be looking at all of those hospitals, but also looking at what is healthcare going to look like in this region in 10 years, in 15 years, and in 20 years, being proactive, not now finding ourselves in the situation that we're in right now.
I'm really thankful that they are speaking out. I was there a couple months ago. We have kids that will come in school so tired they miss a day, and because I was in the hospital the last day, just waiting to be treated. It's not even something that was like they needed the day; they needed an hour, but like they had to stay there for 12 hours just to get seen by a doctor. So we know the problems have always been there, and it's always been interesting to think just how much pressure there is not to talk. That certainly is not going to solve anything. I think that's criminal. I think that's negligent. That was happening. At all, whoever was doing that. And I'm really thankful people are courageous enough to, even put their careers on the line, but to think about their community and what they're seeing on those front lines. I do think that, that larger plan, we know we have an aging population. We know that living in one of the most expensive places in the world to live is making people sick, right? You have higher rates of heart disease, all kinds of things, because people are just working so hard. The stress levels are so high. We have to take that into consideration, right? COVID, look at what happened to our healthcare system and how we treat our nurses and our doctors. At first, we were clapping for them and banging our pots and pans, but that quickly dissipated. So now we're seeing the ramifications of that on top of a lack of a strategy to really think about, okay, 10 years from now when we have how many more tens of thousands of people, when life is getting more and more and more expensive, like all these things, combined, you're going to find yourself in a real crisis. And yes, we have a new hospital coming at long last, but what that's going to look like is a whole different story. And I have to say, people need to realize there are so many amazing professions in those fields. And I really think we need to start as communities thinking, what's the value of being a social worker, someone who's in radiology, someone who's doing different, kind of positions that are not just like doctor, I see that as a high school teacher. Everybody wants to be a doctor, not realizing there's so many other positions that we need filling that is actually causing the delay in many hospitals and clinics.
But many too, there's the element around space to actually get the education. I think a lot of people aspire to want to do that, but if we don't have capacity in our universities, it won't happen.
It's all about investment and where we put our money in. And again, it's a long-term process. Investment does, you buy a house with a mortgage, you don't own that house right away, right? So it's the same thing with any kind of investment. Yes, it might hurt the pocket at first, but when you have those extra seats available, I know there's finally been the change to allow foreign individuals who have, credentials. That should have been done years ago.
10 years ago.
And so now, it's 7 years, so we really have to give it 7 years almost to see any benefit.
Anybody graduating from, and even if they graduate as the MD and all that, how do you make sure that they're going to stay here? Because we are not taking care of the doctors, not paying them, taking care of them. They go down south. We educate them, they go down south. Okay, changing the subject. We're going to go to Alberta very quickly. There was an election. I'm looking at the clock.
Yes,
everybody has to go. Election. And we have Daniel Smith as the premier. what kind of relationship do you think we're going to have? What is in there for us between BC and Alberta now?
I would say interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I think it's, we have a new premier. I'm not sure what their relationship will be, but it will be interesting, I think, and interesting to see too how their demographics shifted around, and where she lost seats.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of interesting, and telling, and a place like Calgary, for her to lose so many seats there. So it'll be interesting. It's early days, I think, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
I think that's really important, right? That election, as much as she won re-election, was a clear sign that her party had lost quite a substantial amount of support.
Yes.
I am concerned as an educator because we know that some of the realities of what we're seeing in the States, we're seeing pieces of that in Alberta in terms of the education, the curriculum changes, and the lack of support for SOGI, and other things that she has said or they have plans to do, the Sovereignty Act. These are all, maybe it sounds political, but to me, there are issues with those that I don't know if BC, no matter what party you look like, really aligns with them. So I think it will be interesting, more conversation. Obviously, they're our neighbor, but it's interesting to see how many seats they did lose, and what that means.
NDP
Does that
gain
mean
about 10 more seats, and there may be few more because they're still counting.
and that rural-urban divide is absolutely massive. So how do you even balance those? And we have that issue in BC as well. So how do you make sure everybody is seeing that their government works for them? Is going to be an interesting question that we're going to have to grapple with.
People say that she's very unpredictable. That's the word. Yeah, you never know what she says and what she does, and next day what she's going to come up with. We'll have to wait and see. Very interesting. Yeah. And very quickly, looking at the clock too, I want to go to talk about the NDP, and all the parties have agreed or voted that we should have a public inquiry about the Chinese interference in our election. It's in the news every day, but Justin Trudeau has said no, he's going to go along with Johnson to continue whatever he started off.
The special rapporteur.
A special rapporteur. So what do you think of that? I'll start with you.
Oh, sorry, Mamia, sorry.
No, okay.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I can start. Like A, B, or C, it doesn't really matter. I would suggest. I think it needs to be investigated. I ran in 2019, so of course I would like to know what was going on, right? As a citizen, obviously, I would like to make sure my elections are fair. I think there's and put aside China for a second, we're seeing around the world kind of democracies at risk from all kinds of countries jumping into each other and meddling. So I don't know if it's just a China issue. I think it seems to be the big one here, but to be honest with you, I think it goes much deeper than that. I do trust our elections process. I think Elections Canada does a fabulous job. Elections BC does an amazing job. So I don't think we're at risk in that direction at all, right? I think that'd be a kind of a false flag kind of idea to raise up those issues. That being said, I want the politics to be taken out of this. I feel it's just all these different parties having these different ideas. Just like in Surrey, get on with the job. So if the special rapporteur, who can do some fantastic work, as we see the UN do, that have criticized Canada for its role in Indigenous relations and realities around that. So I would like to see the results, right, of some kind of investigation come forward, and that instead of politicizing it as a weapon against any one party, that we see it as a Canadian election system that needs to be protected, and that no person running for office should face any kind of pressure from a foreign entity. Again, I don't care what the party is, nobody deserves that kind of treatment. And so that does need to be dealt with. And I think you have the reality, though, of how, when you have one of your largest trading partners, when you have a country that there's a lot going on there, it is complex. So absolutely it needs to be dealt with, whether it's a public inquiry or a special rapporteur. Special rapporteur might lead to an inquiry, right? That's also possible.
I always fear, though, with
go ahead.
queries that, you get the information, but nothing happens with it. And I think whatever we do, we need to have a game plan, an end plan. And I agree with you. I don't think it should be political. It needs to be something that is investigated. And I oftentimes wonder whether or not it should even be anyone that's associated with the political system.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this will take a longer time and we are running out of time. But thank you so much
Thank you.
for both of you in
Thank
such
you.
a short notice be able to come. Because this could be a show by
Oh my
itself
God, yes.
because there's so much to talk about. And with that, we're going to end Kamilla Singh Show and keep watching Kamilla Singh Show. And if there is any issue that you would like to discuss or to ask the panelists when they appear here on the next time, please send your question to us. We'll be more than happy to ask that for you. And thank you to both of you for coming in today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I understand how important it is to have a place called home, and it's frustrating using your hard-earned money on rent. Vic Prasad can make you a homeowner. Get pre-approved services provided to first-time buyers and new immigrants. You can qualify for mortgage even if you have bad credit. Call Vic Prasad now on 604-306-6647. Vic Prasad is associated with Craft Mortgages Canada Incorporated.
For any kind of visa-related services, contact Milky Way Immigration, a galaxy of opportunities located at Unit 209-9547 152 Street, Surrey, BC. They have licensed immigration consultants, placement officers, and LMIA experts to meet your immigration and recruitment needs. Book one-time free consultation either on Facebook or by calling 604-396-0005. Bollywood Banquet Hall and Conference Center, located at Pile Business Center at 201-8166 128th Street in Surrey. No celebration is too small to accommodate you. They have newly renovated 2 halls to serve you, up to 1,000 guest capacity, top-notch chefs to delight you with delectable and heavenly cuisine. So just call Bollywood Banquet Hall at 604-598-2700 for your events. Benisi Mobile Detailing Services. They offer commercial trucks, cars, SUV, boats, bikes, RVs, and much more. Just give them a call at 778-808-2859. Just give them a call at 778-808-2859 and they will do all kind of services at your home.